Well, hello, IDS 105 students, and welcome to week 5 in your class. You are officially now past the halfway point of your term. So these next couple weeks are going to go real fast. So this is a great time to make sure that you have turned in all your assignments so far this term. If you've struggled with anything or missed anything, this is the perfect time to get with your instructor and see if there's any way that you can catch up in class or get back on track or maybe redo something for extra points. They can always say no, but the answer is always no unless you ask. So let's talk about what is due here in IDS 105 for week 5. As a reminder, you can find your course assignments from week to week underneath course menu, learning modules, and then scroll to the week that we are looking for. This week, we are focusing in on module 5, week 5. As a reminder, you can always click through the module introduction, which will go over what you're covering this week. It'll also give you any tips for success, and please make sure that you are scrolling all the way through and reviewing each part of the module guide, because there's a lot of content that's actually within the module in addition to any assigned reading or videos that you will need to watch. This is going to be helpful for you as you answer your questions in your assignments from week to week. As a reminder, always double check the required resources section because it will list any assigned reading from your textbook, but also there might be some extra videos and articles or journals for you to review for your success too. Now, for Module 5, you have a discussion assignment, and this week's discussion assignment centers in on going beyond conflict by applying restorative practices. So as you answer this week's initial post questions, make sure that you answer all of the questions. You can utilize personal and professional experience in addition to your reading and what we have covered here in our IDS 105 course. So for this week, you have 3 questions. The first one is, what is one example of a conflict situation you have seen in films, television shows, or books? So you want to explain what you've seen so that other people can understand it. Question number 2 is, based off of that example that you choose, how could you apply restorative practices in the situation? And then question 3 is, how could being vulnerable, having an open mind, and considering others help with navigating the conflict identified in the situation that you chose in question 1? I want to give you a top tip. There's a wonderful video in your required resources section that centers in on the topic of vulnerability. Give it a watch because it'll help you answer this question number 3 of your discussion post. Your initial discussion post, as always, is due by Thursday. Minimum of 2 responses to classmates, so responses to 2 of your classmates due by Sunday, but you can always work on those earlier in the week as convenient for you and your schedule. What I also wanted to point out is you have your last project draft being submitted this week here in your IDS 105 course. So this week, you are going to finally be zeroing in on choosing a conflict that is part of the scenario that you picked back in week 2. So you know that we have been using the chosen scenario that you picked back in week 2 to answer all of your questions on your project drafts for week 2, week 3, and week 4. Now, this week and week 5, since we have been talking about conflict, you want to go to those scenario profiles. Remember, that's underneath supporting materials. When you click on it, it'll open up this document. It gives you all the details and information about your scenarios. You want to go back to the scenario that you picked, and underneath it, there'll be different conflict options. So you will be answering the questions this week for Module 5 based off of the scenario you picked and the conflict underneath that scenario. So for example, if I chose this scenario 2, personal, I have 3 conflict options here. So for Module 5, I want to keep my personal scenario in mind, but I think I want to focus in on the conflict that's like feeling excluded from my friends as I answer these questions, okay? So as a reminder, you have that project template like always, and I was going to highlight for y'all what you need to be answering. So remember, these were not always in order. So you by now have completed the questions for Module 2. You also completed the questions for Module 3 and Module 4. So what you want to pay attention to is what you need to answer for Module 5, which is this Part 3 section right here. So I'm going to highlight that for you just so that you can see it. So as you're answering these part 3 questions, this is all about communication strategies to navigate conflict. Again, use one of the conflicts underneath the chosen scenario that you picked back in week 2, but now we finally get to pick one of those conflicts, all right? As a reminder, this is a great time for you to use the academic support written feedback services. You can find them by clicking on academic support. And when you do that, click on written feedback. It'll ask you a couple questions about the assignment. Once you have your draft written, you can choose the file, upload it, and submit it, and they give you feedback in less than 24 hours. As always, if you're stuck, you have questions on anything in your IDS 105 course, please reach out to your instructor as they are grading your materials, or you could always check in with your advisor too. Have a great week 5.